When you have what?
No, it's with the headlong.
Oh, headlong, got you. When you have a very long head. At least getting trapped indoors. So what does headlong mean? Yeah, exactly, straight into. So if you're leading with your head, you're going headlong, you're going straight in. You know? You ever get new shoes? When I get new shoes, I got new shoes because I do the new shoes walk when I walk into a room. Check out my cool new shoes. So I walk shoe long into rooms. When you're going headlong, that means you're going without even really thinking. You're Naruto running into something. So what makes people feel happy leads us headlong, leads us straight into harm. No detours, man. No detours. So we get the general idea, but it is a bit more nuanced than that. We're right about all of these things. He's saying that the things that make us feel happy, they lead us into harmful things. And so you might think like love leads to heartbreak. And I think I said before that there is no happy end to love. When you fall in love with someone, you're doomed from that very moment. Either you're going to break up, in which case the love is doomed, or you're going to stay together for the rest of your lives. And then one of you is going to die first. And then so that love is doomed. You know? Unless of course you die at the same time, right?
That'd be nice.
Yeah. What a heavenly way to die. To die by your side, what a heavenly. That's another song from them. It's one of the lyrics. It says, if a double-decker bus crashes into us, to die by your side is such a heavenly way to die. Another song from them. And so anything that you can think of that would, he's saying, that would make us feel happy, it leads us straight into harmful situations. It's a very pessimistic way of seeing the world and of seeing kind of anything that makes you feel happy. But again, it's a bit more nuanced than just that. What makes most people? All people?
Nope.
Some people?
Yep.
A few people? No, most. Most people. What makes most people do what? Feel happy. Not necessarily that makes you happy, but the things that make us feel happy. Those are the things that lead us into harm. And so if I ask you, like, what would make you happy in life? I don't know, what would make you happy in life? Murder. Right? Murder. Murder. Oh, food doesn't lead to murder?
Yeah.
Oh, it does? Okay, we almost missed one. Diabetes, murder, obesity, and food poisoning. Or maybe we murder people through food poisoning. Oh, yeah. So murder, everything points to murder in this class. So the things that make us feel happy, not necessarily the things that make us actually happy. And so it's a thing that we've wrestled with. I mean, we've wrestled with it all school year, certainly all semester, but all school year. What are the things that make us happy? And it's an odd question because kind of an immediate reaction can be, well, we just know. It's a weird question to ask. Well, I don't know if it's such a weird question to ask, because if it's true that these are the things that we think make us feel happy, and then they lead us into harm, well, that doesn't really make us happy then. Because, like, maybe at the time you're in love, but I mean, is the positive to the love, does that outweigh the negative of heartbreak? Does the positive of the love outweigh the loss of the person at the end of life? With your friendships, the friendship, is the happiness that you feel in that friendship, is it heavier than the hurt that you feel from the violation of trust or the murder? I was thinking about it recently that, like everybody, so for example, like my dad had type 2 diabetes. You know which one that is? That's the one you give yourself pretty much. You eat the wrong things in your life, and then at some point you're feeling kind of sluggish, and you go to the doctor says you got type 2 diabetes. That's something that you give yourself by really bad eating habits. And it's not just going to be like, oh, a cheeseburger once in a while. It's like, a lot of it. My dad worked at McDonald's his whole life, and so that's pretty much what he ate every single day. For 2 meals a day was McDonald's. And so it trips me out to think that at some point, my dad would have been sitting there at a desk, about to eat a cheeseburger or some fries or something, and if he had stopped and been like, nah, not today, put it down, and then stop eating it at that point, diabetes would have been like, ooh, You know what I mean? Like there was one cheeseburger that pushed him over the edge. There was one slice of cake that pushed him over the edge. I don't know if I was telling you guys, but I had a friend who died of cirrhosis of the liver, alcoholism. And if she had, it was like one drink, if she had just stopped, like there was one drink that finally her body just went, all right, now you're dead, now you're done, it's a matter of time now. And there's all these things in life that if we walk just up to that edge, if we just walk back from it, then we're alive. Or we don't have diabetes. Or we don't meet that one person who leads us into being murdered. You know, or you never meet that person who you fall in love with who ends up breaking your heart or taking a crap in your bed. Or you never would have met that one friend who then turns around and violates your trust. Or maybe because you met that one friend, you end up not meeting the other one who never would have violated your trust or taken a grubbing in your bed. You know? It's so weird, but you know, again, there's this whole plethora, this impossibly infinite combination of ways that your life could have turned out, and it can drive us crazy if we're thinking like, oh, if I just hadn't. No, I mean, that motion was set in place long ago. You know, like my dad eating that one last cheeseburger that gave him diabetes. Well, I mean, but he started eating those things way back when, you know, and that kind of set him on that path. You know, if he hadn't, I mean, I even think about like if he had gone, let's say he had gone to school, then he never would have worked at the McDonald's, and then if he'd never worked at the McDonald's, he never would have gotten the diabetes also. But then again, I also never would have been born. And so there's this infinite combination of possibilities for the universe, and we can't possibly live in that infinite combination. We have to live in the one that we actually are in. And so now the question is, how do we make the most of it? And how do we find a way to be happy, to try to maximize these things without leading to these things here? And that's difficult, because again, the things that make us feel happy, why would you stop it? I mean, if you're taking drugs every day and they feel great, oh gosh, why would you stop it? I had a student walk up to my desk yesterday and take a test, and the student got a very poor grade on it. I think this person got a 4 out of 13. And I said, 4? She's like, what? I've never seen her without a mask before. She's like, what? I go, she goes, I go, I said, less than 5, but better than 3. And she goes, Scanlon. And I said to the student nearby, I go, she is really high right now. And the student goes, yeah, isn't she? You know? Well, that being that high as she was made her able to laugh at a horribly failing grade, you know, less than 50%. I wonder, you know, if she would have been, I wonder if she would have done better if she hadn't been so high. Or maybe that allowed her to get the higher score than she would have had. Maybe she would have done too, who knows? But who knows, you know, like, what the things that make us feel this way, if we think they're going to make us happy. And unless they stop making us happy, we don't turn from them. You know, what has to happen, I mean, if every time she takes drugs, she feels this way, oh my God, why would you stop? Is that a rhetorical question? Why on earth would you stop? It's the reason I don't do drugs, because I know myself. If I did drugs and I liked them, I would do all of them. Yeah, it's like the same reason I don't drink alcohol. I know myself. If I drank alcohol and I liked it, I would drink all of it. This is my personality type. And so I know enough. It's like, aren't you curious to know what it would feel like? Yeah, of course. But I also grew up in a neighborhood where I looked around my neighborhood and I didn't have to be curious about the effects of these things. I just looked around and I was like, damn. You know, I lived in a neighborhood that had more televisions in them than books. We were always celebrating. We always had parties, but we never seemed to have much to celebrate. We used to celebrate the mundane things. You know, like we didn't celebrate graduations and promotions and things like that. We just celebrated like birthdays, things that everybody has. You know? And it made me think back then, it'd be really interesting if instead of having birthdays, if we had what we call it an accomplishment day, which every year, maybe we do it on your birthday, you had a party, and you wouldn't celebrate your birthday, but you'd celebrate your greatest accomplishment that year. You know, I wonder how many parties we'd have. You know, And then, by the way, you can't celebrate your kids. You can't say, my kids are my greatest accomplishment. No, you can't do that. It has to be something that you've done, not something that your kids have done.
I did for my kids though.
Well, you what?
What?
Like, basically, I made my kids. So,
You phrased it in a way.
I like that. Nah, chill. No. Oh, never mind. I take it back.
I didn't know you were playing priest this year. Well, you're going to be famous the rest of your life on YouTube. Fast forward 10 years, man. I'm going to call People's Exhibit 7. Yeah, no, but you made your children, and you raised them, but they kind of chose, they make those choices about what they're going to do and the decisions that they're going to make and all that. But I'm saying we actually had to celebrate the things that we accomplished, and I just realized that in my neighborhood we didn't have much to celebrate in terms of accomplishments. And I kind of would look around and go, well, I'm curious to know what these things are like. But then again, by the way, I also grew up at a time though where it's like, are you interested in drugs? Yeah, kind of. And who was I looking up to in my life? Jim Morrissey from The Doors. You guys, if you heard the band The Doors, died of an overdose. Brad Noel from Sublime dies of a drug overdose. Lane Staley from Alice in Chains dies of a drug overdose. Andrew Wood from Mother Love Bone dies of a drug overdose. And you see, Kurt Cobain dies of lead poisoning, but probably from a drug overdose. And you see all of these guys who die these ways, and then you suddenly go, I feel like there's a pattern here. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin is beginning, going back to people I admired when I was growing up. And you see this, and you kind of wonder, like, did they feel happy? Yeah, it did seem to feel happy, but were they happy? I suppose if they were happy, they wouldn't be covering it with something else. And it certainly led headlong into harm. That's true. But it is an incredibly blanket statement, though, to say that what makes us feel happy leads us headlong into harm, as though everything that could possibly make us happy eventually leads to harm. If so, I guess a couple of things. First off, maybe there's something wrong with the things that we're taking joy in. Or maybe and I think that this might be something worth considering, maybe there's something so incredibly self-destructive about you because you don't recognize the value of what you are, that you're pursuing things that you know to be destructive. And we see this manifest in lots of ways. We see it manifest in cutting. We see it manifest in people who will make bad decisions and will sequester themselves, like they're miserable and they're sad because no one likes them, but they think that no one likes them. Of course, you're wrong about that, but you might think that about yourself, and then you, of course, hide away someplace where no one can see you, under in a bedroom or in a closet or under a hood, and you hide yourself away from the rest of the world, and then we wonder why nobody ever gets close to us. We know no one ever gets close to us because I'm terrible and miserable and horrible, so then we sequester ourselves even more. Maybe there's something about that self-destructive part of us because we don't recognize the value of what we are. Or maybe it just ain't cool to recognize that there's something unique and beautiful and wonderful and special about us. And so we kind of force those things. It's like people who think that they're ugly. They'll do things to make themselves look even uglier. They'll express it as individuality, but really you're trying to make yourself. Sometimes I'll look at people and I'll just think, are you trying it? Are you trying hard enough to make yourself ugly? And I think we can all see people like that. We can imagine people like that. And I'm not talking about people who get tattoos and piercings. People always think I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about there are ways that we try to make ourselves very unattractive and ugly. Even if it's through personality, we push people away. Because if I push you away, I don't have to be offended when no one's around me. Because I did it. It's my choice. And then we convince ourselves, well, I just don't like people. Well, you're a person, dude. You're a person. If you don't like people, then that means, of course, the problem is centering in you. I don't like myself. I'm a person, so therefore, I don't like people. That's what it really is. Once we can recognize that there are people who are better than us, and I mean not that they're better than us in terms of their inherent value, but there are people out there who are much kinder than us, much nicer than us, much stronger than us, and by the way, also much more wicked than us, because we're also better than a lot of people that are out there in those areas, not in terms of value and worth, but in terms of our approaches and behaviors. Well, now we start to recognize that it isn't so much that we hate people, it's that, well, hopefully not, it's that we hate the things about people that that make people in our own minds wicked, which probably are the things that are inside of ourselves. Because that's, by the way, that's a hell of a judgment to make. I hate people. Well, so you stand in judgment of all of humanity? What is it about you that makes you think that you're qualified to stand in judgment of all of humanity? You know, but that's not what it is. It's narcissism. I hate myself, and so therefore I hate everyone else. Maybe the problem isn't people. Maybe the problem is behavior. Maybe the problem isn't food. Maybe the problem is food poisoning. Maybe the problem isn't food. Maybe the problem is what we're choosing to eat. Maybe the problem isn't food, but the things that we lack self-discipline to not constantly be eating. Maybe the problem isn't friendships. Maybe the problem is the people who we're choosing to surround ourselves with. Maybe we're so desperate to surround ourselves with people that we miss the obvious, that you should have known that this was going to happen. But we overlooked it because, God, we just didn't want to be alone because we depend on this. Maybe the same is true about, maybe it's what we're reading. Maybe it's the drugs we're taking. You know, whatever it is. Maybe it's not the money. Maybe it's what we're doing to get it. You know, maybe it's not the sleeping. Maybe it's the life that we're hiding away from by trying to cover the sleeping. Yeah. So maybe it's true that the things that lead us headlong into harm make us the things that make us feel happy. Or maybe it's because of the things that we choose to make ourselves feel happy. Maybe it's not making us happy at all. Maybe it's covering something else. That's the hard work, to figure out what it is, to be honest with yourself. And then the really hard work of change starts. But that takes too long. You should just eat a large pizza instead.
Fact.
Yeah. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.